Boom, hello, and welcome to the Protector Nation podcast, a podcast that is dedicated to making the world a better place, making the world a safer place by making good people dangerous. In this podcast, we're going to study and understand what it takes to protect your family, to protect your loved ones, because we all know that you have a few basic needs, food, water, and shelter, but you also have the need to protect those things in a world and society where evil runs rampant and is sometimes left unchecked. Learning how to protect yourselves and your loved ones is becoming more and more important. And so we strive to raise the level of accountability to those who would do evil on this planet by making sure that the sheep, that the flock, is more well-versed in protecting themselves and their loved ones. If that sounds interesting to you, then sit back and enjoy the show. Out.
Boom! What's up, you guys? Byron Rodgers here for another episode of the Protector Podcast. And I gotta say, this one, I'm always excited, and it's always a special guest, but this one's a special guest, and I'm really excited to be able to spend some time with a man I've got tremendous respect for, Bazzel Baz. How you doing, sir?
Good, Byron. How are you? God bless you, man. It's good to see you.
Thanks so much. It's always good to see you as well, sir. I've interviewed a lot of folks, and everyone's special in their own way, but there's a certain type of, I don't know, like a grounded, you carry a different energy with you, and I really do respect that. I appreciate it, and I hope that I can also embody that as well, as I grow and mature and all those types of things.
I think you already have it, man. I don't think you're going to want for much of that. I think you have plenty of it.
Thank you. That means the world. So I guess we'll jump right into it. You've lived the life of a warrior. I have always sought to understand that, because there's a lot that we should be trying to take and understand about people that have been able to achieve that. You've Marine Corps, anti-terrorist units, and CIA, and you've got some awards and things like that. But just for everyone else's orientation, would you mind just kind of going through, where you've been and what you've done for the listeners, sir?
Sure. Thank you, Byron. I'm a Citadel graduate, class of 78. I was captain in the Marine Corps. I was one of the Marine Corps' first counterterrorism officers, particularly after we got hit in Beirut and lost 220 some Marines there. I got put on special staff to come up with the Marine Corps' counterterrorism program, which was an honor. And soon after that, I was recruited by the CIA and entered into special operations as a paramilitary case officer for a ground branch and maritime. Ground branch, as you know, sometimes being referred to as the president's secret hand. It's kind of a cool name for, a bunch of guys undercover, right?
Right.
And had the great honor of serving with some of the most amazing warfighters in history, outside of the people that I personally knew, like my father, my grandfather, and other people that had served prior to me, who, we always try to follow in their footsteps, particularly if they're honorable men and women in our military services. But when I got in the agency, I started meeting an exceptionally unique breed of warfighter, and people that were part of an organization that basically got sent out alone often to handle a task, got often sent on one-way missions and returned, and either by their tenacity or their skill level or their good luck or by God's divine intervention, they returned. And returned with, great debriefings on the scenario and their situation. And so for we who would go out later, we tried to learn from that. I will tell you right off the bat, what I did learn from some of the most skilled of those warfighters, heroes, whatever we want to call them, in the clandestine service, I learned that discretion was the greatest part of valor. And So with that, it allowed me personally to walk a little more silently in my character, and realize that life after that wasn't going to be full of a lot of war stories. And quite honestly, for a lot of people that you and I know that have been downrange, they don't have a lot of war stories. Oh, we might get among ourselves and kind of joke about, hey, remember when you were in Kandahar, that thing that you did, or something
That
like
goofy
that. But,
thing you did, or that,
right.
that time you fell down the
Kind of,
stairs on a night op and woke everyone up.
right. That kind of stuff. But other than that, it's a life where you kind of, you're grateful for your past, but you don't live in your past. You move forward because there's so much more to do.
Oh yeah.
So,
Wow.
and then I did. And then of course, after that, I became the founder of the Association for the Recovery of Children. I got to a point, and you've heard the story, where there was something bigger than overthrowing small governments, jokingly. And that was rescuing abducted American children. When now we have the 501c3 of former intelligence, military, and law enforcement officers that are dedicated and have been since 1993 to the safe recovery of missing and exploited, or in this case, sex trafficked American children here. And that's what I spend the majority of my time doing.
Wow.
Unless you get stuck in the Congo, and then of course your insurance company will pay me to come get you out, and that will pay my mortgage.
I've been to the Congo. It was interesting,
I
to
like
say
it,
the
man.
least.
Yeah,
To say the least. That's awesome. I love all that. It's a few things you said that really stood out to me was, it sounds like you're part of a lineage of war fighters and men who've served. I'm finding it interesting that a lot of the high functioning folks that are kind of in that military space come from that background. It seems to be a theme, which then, gives me great pride that I was able to do that, because, I'm really the first one in my family that's done that. So it's like, it's kind of like, wow, this is something that that for everyone that's served out there, this is something that you're doing for your family, and you're putting into your family kind of culture that can really be a positive for a lot of people. That's interesting.
yeah, you're right. You're exactly right. Whether it's, it may have not been your time before, or your father's time, or your grandfather's time, but there's obviously something in your DNA that said, I need to go do this. And I don't think that is something, in my experience, that people just one day wake up and go, I think this will be a really cool thing to do. I don't think it's that way. I think there's something gets triggered,
Absolutely.
and it's probably in your DNA, and you just go, this is something that I must do. And so
Absolutely.
for you, maybe you're starting this long line of war fighters, who knows, from here on out.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's great. That's great. And then the ARC, that organization, the things that you're doing now, I think is a really beautiful, kind of like a crescendo of the culmination of everything you've learned in that warrior's life and that warrior's path, that's being really devoted to something really righteous. And defending those people who can't defend themselves, man, that's something that really gets me excited. So I'm really glad to hear that you guys are doing that. I think that being a warrior is the ultimate act of service. Being a protector is the ultimate act of service. No greater love than this, that you lay down your life for someone else. And that's, that stuff, that's exciting, man.
It is. And I don't know, Byron, if everybody can do it. I think that a lot of people that think they're I'll say this carefully. I think people that think they are going to go out and try to be heroes, whatever the definition of heroes are, I don't think it works out real well. I think the guys that are just like you express, just are willing to lay down their life for the greater cause, for those who can't defend themselves. If when the smoke clears, we're still standing, then people call us heroes. As well as I do, we don't call ourselves that.
Right.
Most of the time it's just like, look, I was just there. I was just doing my job.
Doing my job. That's what it is. Yeah. It's like, thank God it worked out, but I was just doing I was ready to do my job if I had to do the rest of it.
Exactly right. So, but there is the difference between the distinction between those war fighters and others who attempt to be heroic, so to speak, by their own design, or by their own, whatever it may be, motivation or
whatever.
I think the distinction is that we just do it, and you don't know why you do it. You just go. You just go, and at the end of the day, it's like, man, okay, I guess we.
I knew I needed it. I knew I needed to do it, so I did it. Exactly. It's funny. There's a lot, as I study protectors, a lot of what I get back is just, I've just always been a protector. I just have always kind of been like this my whole life. And there's something deep, deep, deep inside of us, I think. Some of us that really speaks to. Awesome. So who would you say, who is Bazzel Baz who are you at your core? This is one of my favorite opening questions.
Man, that's a big
going deep. Man. We're diving right now.
Oh my gosh. You know what?
Actually, real quick before I get into that one, give you a couple more minutes. So for the listeners here, I've been, interacting with Baz and, and learning more about ARC. And if you're looking for an organization that's the real deal, that really, really, really actually helps children, I'd like you to make sure you go and check out the links at the end of this podcast and get connected with ARC, because they're the real deal. And, these days that can be kind of difficult to find and discern. So I want to make sure you guys know that. The opening question, who are you at your core, brother?
Man, I don't think anybody's ever asked me that. And I don't know if I've ever sat, you know what, Byron, I guess I'm just a guy that God called to do stuff, to serve. That's it. I'm just a servant. I've had a pretty mysterious life. I have a pretty interesting heritage that dates back to the days of Noah that's been documented. It's really crazy. My life has been filled with biblical proportion miracles that, unless you were standing there next to me, you would go, "It's impossible. This can't happen." My life has been encased in that whole mind, body, spirit atmosphere. I remember when I was about 10 years old, Byron, and it's funny how you can have one moment in life and it will alter your journey for the rest of your life.
Absolutely.
And when I was a little kid, I used to climb up in trees and the wind would blow, and I thought that's where God was. And I would sit and talk to God. And I got connected. And when I was 10 years old, I remember saying my prayers one night, and I just said, "Dear God, just make my life a great adventure." I remember that. Take care of mom and dad, take care of my sister, but let my life be this great adventure. And Byron, I promise you, if I'm lying, I'm dying. It has been one most incredible adventure. I mean, so awesome. It is as if you asked to be there. It'd be like, "Lord, let me go into the burning building and save them." And then there's a burning building and you go in and you do it,
That's awesome.
And so it's been full of people from all around the world, of every culture, every age that you can think of, from sitting in the streets with the homeless and having a friendship, to sitting and dining with the president of a country, to infiltrating, bad guys. And, it's been bizarre. I mean, you could write 1,000,000 books, you could do 1,000 movies. And so I think that all of those experiences continue to grow me. But at the end of the day, and I do this a lot, you've been up here, you know where I live. At the end of the day, when I go on the high ground and I sit, I'm just a grateful guy. That's it. I'm just a grateful guy.
Man, it's so good. It's so meaningful, because I can agree. I can understand so much of it. Like, at the end of the day, all I got is his grace for everything he's given me, and all what I've survived, and answering all those things that I asked for. That's amazing. At the end of the day, it's just like, I feel the same way. Like, there's just so much gratitude. It's like, it's almost crushing, honestly, to be honest with you. It's almost stronger than me, I gotta to just be,
is.
thankful for everything. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
A servant. That's outstanding. Might even be the title of this thing. So how did you get into what you're doing? What got you
Into rescuing kids, you mean?
Yes, sir.
Well, 1993, you remember we had an incident called Black Hawk Down. Took place in Mogadishu, Somalia. Well, there was a civil war going there, and I was honored to be a part of a couple of CIA paramilitary teams that went in and joined up with some attachments called Center Spike that were part of the Army. And of course, we were there to gather intelligence and a few other things. And this was prior to the Black Hawk Down incident happening. In fact, the CIA actually had teams in before anybody was actually in there, which is pretty typical of ground branch.
Okay.
Because you need, the embassy needed to be reopened. They needed to get boots on the ground so they could start giving sit reps to conventional forces or the SEALs or the Marine Corps or whoever. And so I went in. I had a small attachment of Marines with me, which was great. And we had a safe house, and on a given day, we were running operations, and we saw two little girls hiding underneath some debris. And we noted their location. And the unusual things, they were dressed unusual. They had green t-shirts on and blue jeans and aviator glasses, and it was like they weren't local. And they didn't fit in very well at all. And so we just basically noted their location, Byron, and then chalked it up for collateral damage. Yeah. But that night when we got back to the safe house, something stirred among all of us, and we just were restless, thinking that those two little girls would not survive the next day. But we couldn't bring them to the safe house, and we certainly shouldn't even be rescuing kids because we were doing other things for operations, And we discussed it, and everybody kind of agreed that, it's just part of war, and because we didn't have a place to take them. And so we had an intel briefing. One of our really good case officer, Rich, we won't mention his last name, came in, gave a great briefing. And then as he was leaving the room, Byron, he said, "Oh yeah, by the way," he goes, "this is crazy American lady who just opened up like an orphanage here in the war zone." And then the light bulb went off, and we went, "Whoa, that's where we'll take them." So the next day, we got our battle gear on, and we went looking for them. When we went back to the location, our hearts sunk because they were nowhere to be found. We thought window of opportunity was gone. And I bowed my head, and I remember saying, "God, I think I'm doing what you want me to do. What's up? Where are they?"
I know I'm supposed to be here. Where's the,
exactly.
the payoff?
But the Red Sea didn't open. No, thunder didn't come from the sky. In fact, God didn't say anything.
The silence.
Quiet. So finally, after literally 20 minutes of looking for him, we just loaded up and started to drive away. And then all of a sudden, our translator, Ibrahim, he said, stop. And we looked, and they appeared out of nowhere. And so we were able to take them to the orphanage. And even later, days later, we were able to reunite those kids with their mother and their younger brother who had been put in a refugee camp. And these were the children of, I believe, an Italian engineer that probably had a family in Italy and had them as a family in Mogadishu. And when the war got hot, he either got killed or he abandoned them or whatever. But when I got back to the States, that gnawing at my soul about children, which was really weird, because let me tell you something. I love being a spy.
Yeah.
The paramilitary case officer is like the coolest job on the planet for the rest of your life. I mean, you're jumping, you're shooting, you're crawling, you're hiding, you're doing super stuff, no one knows what you're doing. They're sending you all over the world. Guys. I mean, it's like, who would give up that life, right?
It's everything every little boy wants to be
every
ever.
Little boy.
That's awesome.
Right. And my dream had come true because, there I was one of them.
Yeah.
Secret hands. But, and little did I know when I got back to the States, this gnawing, I thought, and that it was going to change my life. And so I went out to law enforcement and I started asking, hey, what's the deal with missing kids in America? Do we have any? And Byron, I promise you, at that time, I thought there was no missing kids ever in this country. I mean, the thought of a kid missing, I thought all kids lived in a home.
Yeah.
You know, they lived with their parents or grandparents, or maybe they were in an orphanage, but I thought kids had some place to be and everybody loved them.
And if they went missing, like the world would stop and everyone would look until they found the kid. Like that's
Exactly
kind of what
right.
you know?
Yeah, just like, you know, an Andy and Mayberry, you know, movie, you know, it's like, hey, this is what's going to happen.
Right.
But when I started checking with local law enforcement, that wasn't what was happening. And I had some very good law enforcement friends that were very straight with me. And they said, look, we have 250,000 kids missing as of this year. And that was 1993. They said, they're not a priority for us. Homicides, terrorism, car theft, these are priorities. And this is what this is the budget that was given to us. And this is what we use it for. And we just count most of these kids as what we call runaways. And that's it. And they said, and besides that, they said, we have jurisdictional issues. We can't just go into another county or into another state. We have budgetary constraints. We have communication problems. I mean, everything that you could think of. And I don't want to say they were excuses because they weren't, but it's everything, every obstacle you could think of that would prevent you from rescuing kids. That's what was being thrown at me. And so I walked away with it. And I remember I sat with it for a couple of days. I went hiking up in the Blue Ridge Mountains and I sat there and it just didn't sit well with me. These were like, they was inexcusable. I just thought, at least for me, I don't know how I'm going to do this. And I don't even know if I can make a difference in this world, because if there's 250,000 kids, I mean, how do you rescue a kid? What do you do? I mean, where are they? You know, I mean, I didn't know. And so, but I knew something stirred in my heart. And so I just said, God, if you want me to do this, you're going to have to make it work, because I don't know what I'm doing. I don't even know where to find them. And it wasn't long after that the doors started opening, Byron. People would call, I mean, associates, like the people that I checked with in law enforcement, guy called me up. He says, hey, remember you were at my office last month? He goes, hey, guess what? I got one for you. You want to go get this kid back? I was like, yeah, okay, sure.
That's awesome.
So I figured, you know, I had all that CIA trade crap, and I thought, you know what? I'm going to use that. I'm going to use those invisible things, you know, and I'm not going to kick a door in. I'm going to look for windows of opportunity. And so as it would turn out, the first rescues that I did were pretty gnarly. They were out of the country. They were cartel related. I won't talk about them because I don't want those guys ever knowing who went and got, but it was a case where a woman had married a guy, a very high ranking cartel official, and he basically just took her kids out of America and went and got them back. And it was a non-custodial parental abduction. And then so it just started from there on. And then about 1996, I was engaged in this on my own time from 93 to 96.
Wow.
I didn't really tell anybody in the agency. I didn't think I was doing anything illegal because I was doing it on my own time, like Thanksgivings and Christmases, which are great times, by the way, because guess what happens when perpetrators take kids for Thanksgiving and Christmas? They think everybody's busy, and they're not waiting to have somebody sneak up on them, to be honest with you. So, I mean, you know, it's crazy, but
so it's open. Yeah, it's like open season if you're working.
Right, exactly. So
when the enemy's not working.
Yeah, so I about around 1996, it was such a burden on my heart that I had to make a huge decision on whether I was going to give up something I loved more than anything in the world. And that was my association with the agency and the people at the agency. And no one knew exactly what my true motivation for leaving was going to be. And I just said, okay, this is time to go do this. And the reason it is because there was a kid that had gone missing, and I knew where the kid was, and I had to go on an assignment during that month and couldn't get that kid. When I got back off that assignment, that kid wasn't alive any longer. So that turned my heart drastically. And so, so I made a choice. I made a decision. I got out, and I don't think any of the guys in the organization, in the agency, knew what I was up to, what I was going to do. They just kind of figured I probably got out. And then I started the Association for the Recovery of Children. And soon people started knocking on the door, so to speak, and saying, hey, I'm a former Tier 1 operator, and I served with you over here. Do you remember me? And I'd be like, no, not really. Was that an alias? Was that a true? And then people started asking, and then I had a core group of people. I had a guy that had worked with me in the past, a number of guys. George Saganek came out of Pittsburgh. He was a former Pittsburgh sniper, and George jumped on board to help. And then the next thing you know, Thad Turner, former Navy SEAL that we served together. And then Juan Gonzalez, former SEAL, Army Ranger type. And then Kurt. And the list just kept growing. And what was so interesting about this, Byron, is that I was really upfront with these guys. I said, I can't pay you anything. I can't pay you. Yeah. And every one of them said, we don't want to get paid. We just want to go save kids.
The right hearts. Yeah.
So it began, and now we get flooded with resumes like weekly, people wanting to, and it's a matter of trying to build out ARC and create an environment where people don't have to do what I do. Like I ended up in the film industry because it allowed me to make money on the side. You could shoot like for a couple of months, and then you could spend the next couple of months going rescuing kids with that money.
Yeah.
So the film industry offered me the flexibility, and there were a number of people in the film industry, like one of my dearest friends, almost like would be a brother to you and I, Michael Watkins, who was the executive producer on The Blacklist. Michael had such a heart for saving children as well. And he knew at least I had a little bit of talent, and he said, come on, I'll get you on the show. And not because he cut me a break, because evidently he needed that character, and it all fell together. And other people in the film industry would say, wait, you have this talent, you do well in front of the screen. So we'll hire you also. And because we know what you're really doing. So a lot of great people, people have stepped up to the plate so that we could go rescue more kids. And so now this is where we are, years later. We're one of the oldest NGOs out there. And you yourself have taken our very intense equipping course, so and can speak to what we do and who we are when it comes to actually teaching people how to go actually rescue kids. So
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it was literally from ground zero, how you can set up your own operation and become effective at rescuing kids and rescuing children. And it was, it's like for executive protection and protection training, there's some courses you go to that are like, by the book, State Department, this is how we do it, and then there's other, and usually it's not really courses, it's relationships. They give you this type of information, and it's like, this is the guerrilla warfare, tradecraft. This is really what we do. What happens is you go through your school, then you get on the streets or in the sand, and your big brother takes you and says, hey, this is really how it works out here. And that's what that course was like, and it was amazing to be able to sit there and be like, this is what's really happening in the world with regards to this. And then also even everything around being able to recognize the signs, being able to recognize how children are getting put in this position, being able to recognize the different gangs and the different entities that are out there. And then understanding how to build your own organization and NGO around, and do your part to, and then understanding all the different ways you can serve, and, on the spectrum of very intense to, less intense, but just as important, so that one course changed my life. I will say
Yeah.
that. And I have been, it definitely changed my life, you know, and you know, I'd probably say not a day since that has actually been the same, because it just, you ain't gonna go to that course and not have some things to think about. Unless you're just not, I mean, you know, you're a different kind of person, maybe, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Yeah, that was amazing.
So I'm grateful to be doing it. We don't make a living out of it, you know that, but it is needed. And as of this past year, as I mentioned before, and you heard this, we had this year, 2019, we had 421,000 American children missing.
Wow.
421,000 missing. It's like,
Four.
and child pornography was a $3 billion annual business. So the question is, where are they keeping all the kids before they put them on camera? How are they transporting them? I mean, that's a lot of kids. And yet with all the stuff that's happening in the United States and all the focus on the elections and on Antifa and BLM and the Communist Party and the rioting in Portland and all over the place, you know, the idea that there's actually children missing, I don't think it even crosses people's minds, to be honest with you. I don't think they know that world exists, but it does. It really does. So, you know, you've heard people say, pick your battles. And you have to. We can't be involved in all of them. For guys like yourself and myself, of course, we'll always be, you know, we took an oath to defend the Constitution against enemies, foreign and domestic, and we'll always stand our ground as patriots. We'll be the last line of defense for the Constitution and that. But there's about 50 other battles, and you have to pick outside of that which other one you're going to get. And ours happens to be saving children.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. What year was that statistic from, the 421,000?
2019. Yeah, just last year.
Wow, that number is huge. And yeah, you get called to different battles. Like there's certain ones that you just feel like this is where I need to show up, you know. I guess switching gears slightly, and we're going to definitely come back to that, to the children for sure. What would you say if you had takeaways from different times in your life? What would you say if you had one takeaway from your time with the Citadel? What would that be?
Discipline.
Heck yeah.
You get through there, you can get there any place. Yeah. When they called that place the Lords of Discipline, it was, you know, right there, they have an honor code there. You don't lie, cheat, or steal, or tolerate those who do. I mean, it's honor. It's just, maybe honor, maybe not discipline, maybe honor.
Okay.
That's what I took away from there, you know.
Wow. That's good to know. That's good stuff. What would you say about your time with the Marine Corps counter-terrorist unit?
First to fight, buddy. First to fight.
First to fight.
We're not going to wait for somebody else to do it, you know.
Yeah.
It's like once a Marine, always a Marine, you know. It's the esprit de corps and the pride and the history that we had in the Marine Corps. I'm going to tell you something. Once a Marine, always a Marine. There is no other service like it. Like my dad's a Green Beret. I love him. I honor him. We both have friends in the Air Force, the Navy, and the Army. And guess what? You're not a Marine. You're not squat, man.
Yeah, it's something to it, man. It really is. And you just know we got that. You have that engine in there, and there's just something about a Marine, and you just know, you know, it's great. Yeah. It's really I've tried to articulate it about 1 million times, and you just can't. You just kind of either know or you don't, kind of thing. That's funny.
Well, you're in the Marine Corps. I don't know if you remember this going through boot camp, but I remember when I went through a Bulldog, my gunny used to say, "We've done so much for so long with so little that we can do anything with nothing." And it was true, because you remember the Marine Corps, we're the smallest.
Yeah.
And for years, we were always the guys getting all the hand-downs, the second-hand gear, the junk, you know. After they went to the Army, Air Force, the Marine Corps, the Navy, they got all the first-rate stuff. I mean, our housing sucked, you know. We got all our gear, remember? And yet, we were victorious on the battlefield, buddy.
Oh yeah, no, it's so true, and it's the exact same when I got there. I had a pistol with no glue on it. It was like all the paint was missing. like everything we got was secondhand. It'd been through like the Vietnam era stuff we were getting. We were going to Iraq. It was, we're in squad bays. Everyone else is these barracks, like these beautiful barracks. I on a march through SOI, walked by this squad bay, and it said condemned 1985. I was born in 85. So I'm like, wow, that thing's been condemned forever. Walk by this squad bay, and I just remember thinking like, man, I hope I don't end up in this place. And sure enough, that was the squad bay I had to clean out and repaint because I was going to be the guy, because we had to live in there. So yeah, man. And it was, that's how it is. That's good to go.
You know, it's funny because a lot of people, if they're not in the Marine Corps, if they see, and fortunately we have 8th and I that's just so spit and polished. I mean, it's pretty impressive, you know, and it's nice that everybody thinks that guys like you and I are like 8th and I guys, you know.
Yeah, we wear white gloves and
and then we can spin a rifle like that, you know. But I tell people that, especially when I'm talking to millennials, and they go, well, I don't really understand, what's the Marine Corps like? And I go, so did you ever see the movie The 300?
Yeah.
And they go, I love that movie. You go, that's the Marine Corps, buddy.
Yeah, literally, that's a grunt unit, man.
It kind of is, you know. It's our we hold our ground, we fall where we stand, you know. And in all fairness, to so many of our brothers and sisters in arms that are a part of other armed forces, you know,
and are awesome.
You know, I'm so glad that they're there because I've served with all of them. But you know, and if all truth be known in our hearts of hearts, you know, Marines are Marines, and we're going to always feel that way about each other.
It's so true. It's so good. That's awesome. What would you take away from your time with the CIA and Ground Branch?
You know what? Stand first in the fight, and stand back in the, stand back for the victory. In other words, go do your job and let everybody else take credit for it.
Nice.
You know, just unselfish service. You know, when I was in special operations, they made it very clear. No one's going to know what you ever did. And if you're not the type of guy that's okay with that, you're in the wrong place. And I was the type of guy that was okay with that. You know, it's like, and I grew to be more like that, where, and it actually plays itself out in our stuff with art, Byron, because we rescue a lot of kids. And we let a lot of people take credit for it. I mean, we laugh. Sometimes we'll see people, and there'll be a newspaper article and somebody talking about the kid they rescued. And we're like going on, wow, I don't remember seeing them there.
Well, God bless them. You know?
But it's okay. And, you know, if we can rescue a kid and give credit to law enforcement, and then and it builds the strength in the community between the relationship between law enforcement and the civilian market, I'm all about that. You know, I think it's kind of cool to be kind of that, I don't know, have that kind of Zorro attitude, you know, that Avenger attitude where you just hide behind something, you go do the good deed, and you come back and no one knows you did it. I think that's great. To be honest with you. I told a friend of mine, we were talking, he's done very well financially. He works for Merrill Lynch. And I said, he said, what if you could have all the money in the world? He goes, what would you do with it? And I said, you know what I would do with it? I'd go do good things for people, and they'd never know who did it for them. The kid who needed to go to college, his college would be paid for. The little old grandmother that is taking care of her adopted children, she'd get a car, you know, and this and this and this. You know, I would just, so, you know, just silent, great deeds would be, how cool would that be, right?
That'd be awesome.
It's awesome.
The thing about good deeds is I feel like people are afraid to like kind of reach out and do them sometimes, like they're giving up something. They think they're giving up something. But what they don't realize is that when you really start to bless people, it's like priceless what you get back in your whole life. Like everything's brighter. Your whole entire life is improved by the ability to do these things. It's like,
you're right.
It's literally a priceless thing you experience in return. And so yeah, man, it's something I want more people to just step out and do. Try to put a smile on someone's face. Yeah, you know, because it can become, you can almost get addicted to it. You can be like, you know what, let's go. It changes you. Yeah, it's so positive.
It does. It feeds your soul. And I know the organization, I came out of the agency, and look, in all fairness, there are a lot of bad people that have come out of the agency. But there's a lot of good people that too. Look, John Brennan, I'll boldly say it. I consider him a traitor. And he was director of Central Intelligence. And guess what? His number is going to be coming up here pretty soon with all the stuff that happened in Benghazi. Him and other people, that were complicit in that stuff. But outside of that, the agency as a whole, there's a lot of great people. And there's those great people that taught me that humility, and taught me to do those deeds in secret and let somebody else take credit for. So the agency did that for me, I think.
Awesome. That's a powerful, kind of principle to use inside a team too. That's something I teach at my school to executive protection agents. It's like, no, man, you move the credit to the team, push the credit to the leader, keep them healthy. The stronger the team is, the stronger everybody is. The stronger your leader is, the more influence they're going to have, and the stronger you all are. And it's
remember in boot camp, you got your weapon, and they made us go through that whole thing about my weapon is my friend. Also, well, remember this, they always said, you take care of your weapon will take care of
you. Yep, 100%. It's the truth.
That's right, man. So same thing with your people. You take care of your people. I believe great leaders, Byron, are here to serve our people. That doesn't mean you don't take up your leadership role and you have to be a decision maker. You have to lead, follow, or get the heck out of the way. But I believe that you pursue your leadership with a servant's heart, and you always look at your people and say, and what I do is what I'm doing, if what I'm doing is making their lives better in so many ways, education or lifestyle or whatever it may be, then I consider myself a good leader. Because this as well as I do. Look, when God calls us home, someone else is going to fill the slot.
Yep.
So hopefully you've raised somebody up that will take your place, that will be that same type of leader for the people below them.
Yeah, 100%, and keep that lineage going.
Yeah.
That's good stuff. That's deep stuff. What would you say about kind of the state of our kind of homeland security with regards to everything going on in the media and these groups and the elections coming up?
Well, I think that we have managed over the last number of years to do this to ourselves, to be honest with you. We don't teach constitutional law. Somewhere in the last couple of administrations, probably starting with Clinton's administration and forward, we started not teaching history for as it was. We started changing history. We started making stuff up. So we took civics out of school. We took, social studies out of school. And so people don't know how government really should work. We took so many things out of the educational system. And I say we, a certain faction of we decided to do that. And I believe it was orchestrated to a certain degree to get us to where we are now. Coming from an organization that is skilled in overthrowing small governments, and definitely from as a time in the agency when I fought in the Cold War, I know socialism also well. I know the push for communism. So globalism is just another word for socialism and communism. And so the administrations prior to that, starting with probably three main administrations, Clinton, Bush, and Obama's administration, all managed to push us towards a globalist platform where we weren't teaching people to be good Americans anymore. We were teaching people to be, we are the world. And that opened up a door for where we are now with the push for socialism. Guys like George Soros and George Soros Jr. funding things. And so I think that where we have now come to is a place of what we call insurgency. I think that what you're seeing taking place in America now are very strong backed insurgencies by globalist players that are bound on destroying the United States. I'll give you some examples of that. You can call a group whatever you want to call a group. A group can have any name it wants to have, but its actions are what we look at, what it's doing. When I look at Antifa and I hear people like Joe Biden say it's just an idea, particularly after I just got out of the Denver Patriot rally, and a veteran was killed by an idea. Yeah,
Yeah.
an idea, right? A gunman. You want to call him an idea, but he has strong ties to BLM, Antifa, Occupy, all of that. Then all of a sudden, I think that they don't understand, and they should, but they don't understand exactly things that how you defend a nation. Now, Homeland Security, I believe, does. And I think Homeland Security is trying to find its place on what it can and cannot do legally. But what's interesting is that we try to keep everything, our reactions, in a legal lane because we want to be a civilized nation. We have a judicial system. In third world countries where you have insurgencies, it's not like that.
No, it's not.
I mean, Communist Party, versus the whatever party is going to be. I mean, those guys are fighting.
It's a war. Yeah. That's blood spilling in the streets. People getting yanked out of their beds at night.
Exactly. So it becomes close to war. And last time I was at a meeting up in Washington, I actually heard conversations from some pretty powerful people that were talking about how they feared that we were on the brink of civil war. And they weren't talking, get this, they weren't talking about race wars. That's not what they were talking about. They were talking about civil war between the country, of split, like where you see now socialist Democrats and Republicans or conservatives, they're talking about that kind of war. So how did that end up playing itself out is when the globalists started ushering in a lot of strife. For example, most people don't know the number of Ukrainians that came into the United States or allowed the United States, and many of them are part of Antifa now. They don't understand that Antifa has its roots in the Nazi Party as of this day in Germany. They haven't seen the Antifa fighters, war fighters, with their flag, with AK-47s and all their battle gear, like what we wear. So people kind of think it's like, it's
some kids, some hipsters running around.
Exactly. And then we deal with BLM, when BLM has openly claimed to be a Marxist organization that has vowed to destroy the Constitution of the United States.
And the nuclear family.
And the nuclear family. So what happened was they were very smart when they created their name, BLM, Black Lives Matters, because if you say, I don't like Black Lives Matters, what people hear is Black lives don't matter. Psychologically, it was brilliant. It's brilliant. And I only know this messaging because I did it in the agency where you try to find just the right sentence or just the right title for something so that, and so here we have an organization that is running under the cover of a name that most people, if they don't research, they don't even know they're a Marxist organization. They don't know what they claim. So if you take them, you take Antifa. Now let's take let's take the supremacist groups that are Nazi bound tied also. And then we're going to take the Communist Party that's part of all of that. I mean, you just have a hodgepodge of people, but you have to ask yourself this. How are they organized? Well, get this. A number of major corporations, including the Bank of America, gave millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter this year.
Right.
Now, that money got filtered down to Antifa, okay? Also, and to who else? And the Communist Party, okay? And the list goes on because we're following the money, right? So the question for me is, wait a minute. If the Bank of America gave that much money to an organization that has threatened the Constitution of the United States, how come the CEO of the Bank of America isn't being arrested for insurgency or treason or whatever you want to be, Right. So what happens is we have gotten ourselves to a point where people go, oh, well, it doesn't matter who it is. If it's the KKK, they're okay. They're allowed to say their thing. If it's Black Lives Matter, they're okay to say their stuff about socialism. Oh, if it's Antifa, they have a voice also. So we've gotten in our society where these organizations have pitted people against people on issues that don't really exist. And I bring that back mainly because of the race issue. Look, anybody who's anybody can go to Portland and watch Antifa and watch BLM. And this is what's funny to me. Okay, so look at the people that are rioting and burning stuff down. They're of every race that you can think of. So
absolutely,
something's like not right here.
Something's off.
So it's not about that. It's about insurgency and it's about destruction. And I believe if we haven't already uncovered it. I believe that the Socialist Democratic Party has a finger in the cookie jar, to be honest with you. I believe it's to stir up, just like the globalists have said, to cause division in America and cause people to see something that doesn't exist there. You know, we know this to be true because, and you've heard me say this, I just...
I've seen this stuff happen in other countries. Like I'm sitting here going, like it was like months ago, I made a video about the American ideological, like an insurgency. And I'm talking about like what I'm seeing. And I'm like, you know, I'm trying to figure out ways to get Americans to wake up to what's happening. Because the next chapters of the things like this get really bad.
Really bad. Look, we've been there. We've been in the middle of Civil War.
Yeah. It's
People
like,
here have no idea. Everything that we hold sacred and beautiful will be destroyed. Look.
Destroyed. And it's like, once you can't have conversations with people, that's when things are really getting destabilized. And I feel like the media is like just making everyone such enemies. But then I talk to someone on the street and it's like, we agree on 90% of things, but we maybe disagree on one or two things. That should be like, I like the Seahawks and you like the 49ers, not, you know, I'm a xenophobic, horrible, you know what I mean? We're in combat now.
I'll tell you this, I'm thoroughly convinced now. I'm not a Republican nor Democrat. I'm just a patriot. But I will tell you that I'm going to vote for the Republicans this time. I did last time as well. But I will tell you that many of us as patriots are looking at the potential outcomes of the election. And this is what I believe could unfold. If Joe Biden gets in, and if he dies, Kamala Harris will get in, of course. But
God bless her.
God help us. But if Biden gets in, and there's a division in the military, okay?
Yeah.
There will be. There will be. We know that. What will happen is Biden will have no choice, based on who he is friends with, to call in the United Nations.
Yep, to bring in the UN.
Bring in the UN to help quell riots. And he'll bring in, and the Chinese, as you know, there's probably, Trudeau already cut a deal with the Chinese, the Chinese Communist Party. They are in just north of Vancouver. Their military is staging in Canada. It's weird. It's like, what's up with that? You know, what are the Canadians going to do about that? And Trudeau's like, they're here to protect their investment. What's their investment? What is it? Is it a military base? Is it? But nevertheless,
all the real estate they have here.
They're up there. So, you know, could we have an invasion? And yes, we could have an invasion. Once the UN gets it on our soil, you know what's going to happen. We're gonna go after them. People will fight. We'll fight to get the UN off our soil, and then you will see that civil war that we're talking about. But Biden and Kamala Harris will have the globalists to back them, and guess who else? Other countries will come into America, and eventually, what will happen to the United States? It will be divvied up.
Yeah.
It will be divvied up, not just under martial law. And this civil war won't be a civil war like you see in the movies where people are just shooting across the valley at each other. You'll see 500-pounders drop from jets, from UN jets. You'll see tanks rolling in. You'll see your shores for the first time. You know, California will see ships unloading, like, who knows, the Chinese army or the Russian army or whoever it may be. And we will be in the biggest, I mean, I can't even imagine.
All the angst and all the hate and everything the world has for us will into the country.
That's exactly
absolutely
right. Yeah, and I don't think
because
I don't think
it's just,
you know,
it's like,
and they don't get it because they think that what they're seeing happen in Portland and Minnesota is like, oh, that's just happening there. It's like, okay, well, you better stop it because it's your town. If they think they can tear down statues there and burn buildings, and what makes you think that you're immune from that? That they can't come to your town and do that too?
Yeah.
And you don't even know who they are, you know, or whatever. So when we, we had this shooting in Denver this weekend, that kid, and you can see his, Channel 9 news station hired him to protect their camera person, right? Their producer. Kid didn't even have a license to carry a weapon. Didn't even have CCW. Who did the background investigation, right? And the kid has ties all the way back to Occupy and Antifa and BLM and a Communist Party. So now we're finding out that, at least I heard, and I haven't seen the evidence, but I'll tell you what someone told me, is that the owner of Channel 9 news station actually organized the Communist Party that was protesting, and BLM and Antifa that was protesting, and they actually hired this kid with them. Byron, you have a great military background. If you had been there, you would have seen the same thing I said. It looked like they staged for an assassination.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they said they had already promised they were going to get one veteran. They were going to get one of them. And they got one of them. So,
or at least stage the type of incident that they could leverage to cause more division and discord, And now we want to get veterans to fight Antifa to get this battle started in the streets. And so they're trying to tease us out. And I'm just like hoping everyone stays smart and peaceful as long as they need to. It takes discernment, and we need to really figure out what things we need to stop and block. And I think a lot of now being a patriot is really just speaking out. Like, I think there's so much of it is just not cowing to all these ideas and all these socialistic ideas. I think it's even now, a lot of the battle needs to be just people being like, no, and I don't agree with this. And we stand for these values. And a lot of the silent majority or good people taking a stand for what they believe in and not getting pushed around by all these these media psyops, and these phantoms that they're trying to get us all to believe in.
I believe in freedom of speech, and and we have to have that. But your voice, whether you're a socialist or communist or whatever, I don't care if you say I'm going to destroy the Constitution. You have that right in our country. But when your voice starts burning down buildings, when your voice starts killing people, when your voice starts destroying property, when your voice starts, then guess what? You don't have a voice anymore.
Yeah, you ruined it.
Now you've gone across the line, and that's when patriots have to stand their ground and say enough's enough. And sadly, what I feel is going to start happening, if it's not already happening, is the American patriots of this country, the law-abiding citizens, are going to just start saying, guess what? Your life is now on the line. Boom, you're gone. And they're just going to start shooting, and they're just going to start taking people down. I've seen this, and so I've seen it for 30 years in third world countries. You've seen it before too.
Yeah. And that's why I'm sitting there like, goodness.
Most of the Americans, they keep saying that the patriots are right wing. They're not right wing. They're in the center of the country.
Watching this whole thing go, watching everyone, both sides, and trying to bring accountability if needed, basically.
That's exactly right. So, but the people that, most of the conservatives are just saying, look, I don't, I'm not doing anything to you. Don't damage anything. And yet the left is just destroying and destroying and destroying. So the question is, when does Byron say, you are not coming in my house and you're not harming my family?
Right.
Or when does Byron say he's driving his truck or his car or whatever, and all of a sudden he's stopped by a whole group of Antifa that are armed, and they're pointing their weapons at him, and he runs them over with the truck. So what's happening is there's a lot of people are instigating. They're instigating against really normal people. But I think we're at a tipping point where, we're going to see people start fighting back physically now, to be honest with you. I mean, look, I find this kind of interesting. I think the governor of Minnesota, or is it Michigan? That was almost kidnapped, Michigan, right?
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Michigan, I believe. Yeah. She started out by saying this was a militia group. And the FBI said too, and Donald Trump is to blame. Only a couple of days later to find out that it was Antifa.
Yeah.
Not a militia group.
Yeah.
I mean, and so why did she do that? Why, it's just politically charged so that she could blame the president. And the president tweeted and said, well, I guess you should have said thank you, for us saving your life, basically, but you chose to. Yeah. But it wasn't the militia. It wasn't any militia. It was Antifa, So I think that when we come to those people stirring the pot, there's some very smart and very well-trained
Surgeons,
investigators and
forces.
surgeons that are in this. And look, law enforcement, some law enforcement around here, they're not even ready to deal with it. I sat down at meeting. No, I sat down in a meeting with some officials, law enforcement officials, at both the state and federal level. And I said, did you guys ever, did they ever disseminate the confidential information we got from the 2015 Baltimore riots that was signed by George Soros Jr. on how the money is moved and how we organize the rioters and how we do communications and covert communication? I said, you guys ever get that? And they sat at the table and went, we've never seen that. Now, of course, that was on Comey's watch, of course. But so I pulled it out. It was like 9 pages of stuff. And I had it and other people had it. And they read through it a little bit. And it was an education for them. And I said, look, if these people are in your town and you're going to guard against them, you need to know how they work. Totally oblivious. Had not been given the opportunity to learn it. Now, that's a leadership problem. That's not their problem. That's because it didn't get handed down. So this is what we have. We have a lot of people that think they know what's going on.
Right.
They don't know what's going on.
Yeah. And a lot of people fooled by this kind of zeitgeist kind of situation. Yeah, no, it's very interesting. I've never felt this way about things, you know.
Interesting times.
Interesting times, and we're here for a time such as this.
There you go.
It's really the game, you know. Yeah. Your book, Something Bigger Than Overthrowing a Small Government, which is just such an awesome name, right? What would you say about it? What if you were going to describe it to people? What is that body of work really all about?
It's 520 some pages, which is pretty thick, which you could use to stop 9mm rounds if you put them in there. Intentionally designed for that, of course. It's my journey of how I went from being a former spy to an extreme humanitarian and rescuing kids, and God's fingerprint on me through the whole way. Revelations and resolutions. In this journey to save more kids, and basically being very bold about the truth, the ground truth of what takes place. And at the same time, you know, it points out some mistakes that I've made along the way, so that others would not make those mistakes. I like to think it's a map for those who want to get involved in rescuing children, so that they can learn from the journey, learn from what I've already gone through, so to speak. And then from time to time, hopefully there's some humor in there. But so far I've gotten great results. People have thanked me for it. I think it's not just a good read. I think it's a great education, to be honest with you, on how you stand your ground in the midst of a world that will totally disagree with you when it comes to holding the moral line and doing what's right. I think that at the end of that, you come out a braver warrior, and you realize that it doesn't matter if you're standing alone. You've heard me say it before. I think the book sums it up in that one man or one woman with courage is a majority. And I think when it comes to rescuing kids, and maybe with anything you do in life that's good, because I think we fight in a world now that we fight principalities of darkness and evil. I think we fight a spiritual world that whether people believe that or not, it doesn't really matter. Look, God doesn't need your belief or your disbelief to exist, and neither does Satan. You know, like air exists. Do you see air? No, but it's there. You know, so for all those wankers out there that go, well, I don't believe in God. It's like, well, okay, you don't have to.
Fine. That's great.
I do.
It's like gravity.
Yeah, like gravity, exactly. And, you know, and so I think that if we talk about takeaways, is that, you know what? Stand your ground. Stand your ground and do what's right. And for us, it's rescuing kids. And for somebody else, it might be something else. And there are people that'll go, well, there's a lot of rights. No, there's not. It's just like people go, well, there's a lot of different truths. A lot of people could be. No, that's not true. There's one truth about a lot of things. And people go, well, you should be tolerant of everything. It's like, no, I'm not. Look,
Absolutely not.
I don't tolerate lazy people, man.
Yeah.
I had somebody, one of my buddies said, well, I never thought you were prejudiced. I said, I am. I'm prejudiced against lazy people.
Like my thing is, weakness is the worst thing. And if anything wrong in your life, you can trace it back to weakness. Discipline is the medicine, man. I'm the same exact way. My parents used to talk about being lazy as if it was a disease. like those lazy people over there, it was like those lepers. That's the way we used to.
Well,
that's lazy. They'd say it with scorn and everything.
That's true.
So good.
Well, you know this as well as I do. How you do anything is how you will do everything.
True story. Just be faithful.
And I don't know if that comes from our Marine Corps training or whatever. And look, I have great compassion for people that things have gone wrong in their life, and I know that. And I think that those people need to be helped, but I think they need to be helped to a degree. And what I mean is, like, my granddad was an immigrant here, and he worked 3 jobs. Nobody gave him anything. My grandmother, same way, and they grew up in the Depression, extremely poor family, and they worked their way. And my grandfather always tried to instill in his kids, look, be better than me, and never be lazy, and how you do anything is how you're going to do everything. And so, the strongest steel is sharp, is sharpened in the hottest fire, and all those things. And they weren't just words. They were soul food,
Yeah.
soul,
So good.
that built your character. They were the building blocks if you took them. I mean, if you were a smart aleck kid and you was like, oh, what does that old man know? Yeah, it'd go in one ear and out the other. But if you knew wisdom and you grasped and you held on to it and you fed on those words all of your life, and they built your character to the point that no matter how many times you got knocked down, it was how many times you got up and counted.
Yeah.
And guess what? You become something. So I'm all for helping people, but when they don't want to help themselves, when you've given them opportunity, and they, they're like, well, I'm just going to let people give me stuff, Look, that's why I'm not there's a point for welfare to a certain degree, but I'm not a big believer in like people living off of welfare. If I were the mayor of a town, I'd get rid of all my street sweeping machines, and the people that were homeless, I'd say, here's your job. You just sweep this block every day.
Yeah.
It's this block, and you get a bed, and you get fed, and you get a shower, and maybe even get an education, but you're working. You're working you're earning what you worked for. And it instills something in people, and guess what? It gets rid of laziness, So
yeah. And I think it'd be real interesting to see which ones of them choose to work and which ones of them choose not to, and they choose to still be homeless. Because that's really the conversation in a lot of places, man.
Yeah, it is. Well, and you keep this key word, Byron, choice. You're right. Yes. We all have a choice, and
sovereign.
Look, I tell people all the time, any of us, you, me, we've had moments in our life where we could choose to be a victim. We could. We've been wrong.
100%.
Right? I mean, I've had things done to me that I look back and I go, I would never do that to somebody. Why?
Yeah, and that's why you didn't see it coming. Those are the ones that get me.
Yeah.
I have my buddy now who's a little more, one of my good friends, and sometimes my wife will be like, you really believe them? And I'm like, I don't lie about things. It's like this little blind spot I have. So I'd be like, I just believe everybody's like me, And I have people around me now that are like, Byron.
Well, and I had to learn that the hard way. Yeah. And so because of that, it's like, it makes you smarter, but I had a choice to not be a victim. And I was a victim for a little bit until my dad just said, you know what, you're not going to be a victim. He said,
we're not doing that.
Stop your crying. He goes, look, so you didn't see that. You couldn't. And he said the same thing. Because you wouldn't do that to somebody doesn't mean they wouldn't do it to you. You just need to be smart and remember that. But you cannot be a victim all your life. He goes, you're going to go through life, and he said, there's things that you're not going to understand.
Yeah.
In life.
You're just not going to be able to.
He said, don't try to understand them. Just get on with your life. And so I think, and it's interesting because we're kind of coming full circle of all that's happening in the United States right now, almost every single time I hear somebody from the groups that are protesting talk, it's all about the victim. They're all a victim. We're all a victim. The government did this to us. Like, some of them are 18 years old, and I'm going, you haven't even had time to be a victim.
To be victim. Well,
You've been living in your dad's garage. He's been feeding you every day.
Right? And that's why you're out here protesting, got your bills paid.
Exactly.
By your parents and the government. But no, and it's like they're weaponizing all the victims. It's what the messaging and everything's doing is they're turning these victims into insurgents, which is kind
You're
of what
exactly
the
right.
insurgents
That's
do
a
as
great way of putting it. They're weaponizing all the victims. That's so good.
What they're doing to literally overthrow a country.
That's the title for your next book right there, buddy. Weaponizing all the victims. Oh my gosh.
That's exactly what's happening. So getting back into the rescuing children world here, what do Americans need to know about what's going on with regards to missing children and sex slavery and everything that's happening in the darkness?
Well, I think one of the things our country needs to know, actually the world needs to know, like I hear people talk about this and they go, we haven't had slavery in this country in 150 years. Okay,
right.
That's true. And Abraham Lincoln, everybody, we were on the right track. That's it. Let me tell you something. We have more slavery in our country now than we had 150 years ago. And it's across the board. And it's not a racial issue. It's black, white, green, yellow, you name it.
Anything.
And it's called sex trafficking.
Wow.
And it is a business model that is worth millions and millions and millions of dollars. Now, what I find ironic is like we made 150 years ago, our nation took all that effort to make sure that travesty didn't occur ever again in our country. And to a certain degree, it didn't. But to another degree, it did, and it's hidden. And when it comes to changed, it took on a different face. It took on a business model of prostitution. We've over-sexualized our society so much that it got hidden behind that whole pornography, sexualization movement, and then people went, wow, we can make a business out of it. And then in reality, what we have is slavery. We have it, right? I mean, across the board, child sex trafficking, adult sex trafficking, it's slavery. I mean, that's exactly what it is. People are taken against their will and they're confined or controlled or used and abused for profit. It's crazy. And we have that. But yet, people don't want to look at it that way because they want to, the bad guys have managed to, they have a great disinformation campaign out there.
They really do.
And it's assisted by people that are in elite positions that have got their hands in the cookie jar. I mean, I've heard conversations before from people, overhearing conversations from people in political positions that would say, well, I don't see anything wrong with the LGBT wanting to lower the age of consent to 12. Children should, explore their sexualization. I've heard those conversations, and or somebody says, well, look, I look at pornography, it's nothing wrong with pornography, or, I mean, the list just goes on and on and on to the point that if you say, look, I have 3 children that are being prostituted by this pimp, and you were in a conversation with a certain person and they would say, well, how old is that girl? And you'd say, well, she's 16. Well, 16, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with 16? So this is the mentality. It comes from, well, I'll tell you what it comes from. It comes from people not having God in their heart, to be honest.
That's really what,
That's what it boils down to. Because anybody that has a good connection with God would understand that children are innocent. And I don't care what part of the United States they're from. I don't care what family they came from or whatever it is. For us, we don't sugarcoat it. You've heard me say this before. It's paid child rape. That's what it is. It's paid child rape. Now, and it has infected, and that's a good word for it. It has infected every bit of our society, Byron. I just pulled up an article this morning. Sadly, a police officer was found guilty of molesting a young child. He only got 60 days That's it. 60 days. Go figure. So what does that tell you? Something's wrong. Now, I'm not pointing the
60
finger at our
days
60 days.
in some, I mean, that, you know.
That's like something I would hear about like in Bolivia, you know,
Yeah.
or some.
Well, and in some of those third world countries, they just would have shot him.
Well, trust me, I'm of the opinion that anybody who touches a child probably needs to be shot, to be honest.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm like, kind of like, you know, there's some places he just would have went missing.
Yeah.
So, you know.
But we have a problem with it in America, and people are so busy with their lives that it hasn't, like in 1993 when my law enforcement associates said it's not a priority. Well, it hasn't reached the priority here. It only becomes important when it happens to your child or something. And
or when it's on the news.
What's that?
Or when it's on the news.
Or when it's on the news.
Apparently. You know.
Apparently. And I think that, honestly, the problem we have in America is that a lot of Americans' hearts are hardened, and they think it's okay to abuse children. I think, and we know that because we have lawmakers that are trying to change the laws to allow pedophilia to be a gender thing, but it's not and then it's okay that an adult should want to have like sex with a child, and that's all wrong. And we know that's wrong. We need to protect our children. They have innocence, and it destroys them and it traumatizes them for the rest of their life. And yet we've got this bizarre, evil type of thinking that is at some of the highest levels of our courts, and it's just wrong. So there's no accountability, really.
Man, yeah, that's a quality problem. I feel like really America is under our values have been destroyed. And I think that's really what's destroyed this nation and done such damage is, you can't create laws to help a sick people really, and it's because our values have been so degraded. And now like all this promiscuity and all these things people don't think are a big deal, but there's a reason why you're not supposed to do them. It degrades the quality of the human in some way, in such a way that they fall for everything. It degrades the quality of the society, like everything. I believe even this was a very systematic, deliberate thing that's been done to America to weaken us, because then anything goes, do as thou willst, and it's made us very weak. Because now it's like we're having conversations and making laws around things that like shouldn't even be mentionable. Having sex with a kid shouldn't even be. You should be ashamed to even mention it. To even mention it, let alone try and make it somewhat legal. That says to me that the values have degraded so badly that for someone to make a case for this in public, it's a sad state of things.
Yeah, you'll never be able to legislate morality.
Right.
You're never going to be able to tell someone that they're breaking the law if they don't like that other person, or they don't like the shirt that they're wearing, or we've gone so far overboard, and you're exactly right. You start changing the condition of a person's heart, and you won't have a problem with those things, Yeah. I mean, and I'm a big believer in this. Look, my grandfather was a Muslim who became a Christian. Mm-hmm. And I remember his conversion, not his conversion, so to speak, but he was a very wise man. And I remember walking out of his house to go back to school, like 2 weeks before I graduated from the Citadel. And my grandmother had passed away when I was 4. And she was a devout believer, a Christian, Native American of roots that, just had a real personal relationship with God. She wasn't, in fact, she left the Catholic Church because she was seeking a personal relationship rather than tradition. And my grandfather said to me as I was leaving, my middle name is Hassan. And he said,
Yeah.
Said,
Good to go.
Yeah, I said, yeah, Granddad. He said, this thing your grandmother spoke of? And I was like, no, I don't know. And he goes, that Jesus Christ is the Son of God. And I said, oh yeah, I remember that, Granddad. He goes, it is true. That's it. That's all he ever said.
Outstanding. Yeah.
But here's a guy that his wife had passed away for many, 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 many years. He didn't go to church, believe me.
Yeah.
Black and white television until they finally, I don't even think he had a color television, it was like the old kind. And maybe he watched some evangelists on TV. He couldn't read English very well, but something happened in his life. And I knew the convictions of my grandfather so well that there's absolutely no way, Byron.
Yeah, you're like, no way. If someone would have told you, you would have never believed it.
No, he would have never said it unless it was true in his heart. And so I've held on to that for most of my life. And I believe there was a time when I wouldn't say this, but I'm at a point now where I can unashamedly say this. I believe that the fate of the world rests in the hands of Jesus Christ, the Lord and Savior of Almighty God. Of our God. I believe he is the Son of God, and I believe everything that's biblically written. And I have seen people that when they give their life to the Lord, their whole heart changes. And it's unexplainable to a lot of people, but yet I know it happens. They start acting better, different. They're more compassionate. They learn to love. They treat people differently. The hatred that they had spewed out of their mouth dissipates. It's just so. I've not known of any other religion, so to speak, in the world that can proclaim that. And speaking of that, now that I'm thinking about it, it's funny, you can take every single religious leader out of their religion, and their religion will still exist. You take Jesus Christ out of Christianity, you have nothing. You know why? Because it never was a religion. It was about a personal relationship with the God of this universe. And that's the difference. And that spiritual component is what changes people's hearts. You look, historically speaking, not only just Paul, who crucified Christians, but you and I have friends who were the worst of the worst at times, and maybe even ourselves. And you would look and go, that guy is never going to change. And all of a sudden, years later, you run into that guy again, and he's just a totally different person. He's so nice and kind.
And you're like, you guys will never know what kind of man he was.
That's
right. Like, that guy, the one you
right
think
there.
is the nice guy.
Yeah, and you would swear upside down. You'd go, he's never going to change. And in fact, you would even go so far to go, that guy's going to die and go to hell. Okay?
Yeah. Like, I don't know. Maybe God can save him. There's I know exactly what you're talking about.
And to the point where you would even think no one can save that guy.
Yeah, exactly.
And you meet him years later, and he's a totally different person, and you're thinking, well, I don't know, did you come into money?
How did this happen?
Why
did they know about you? and you're like.
And then the guy will open his mouth, and he'll just very, very eloquently or very calmly and with so much love go, no, guess what? I found Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Or Jesus found me. And you're like, and that's it. It's like, that's it. He goes, that's it.
Yeah.
It's like, boom.
Things are good
so
now.
I think that the salvation of the world, to be honest with you, and all those people that just don't know him, I wish they did, because we would be a lot better off than we are now. And I am thoroughly convinced, and I'll say this boldly too, that there are members of the Socialist Democratic Party, and there may be some in the Republican, that their father is the father of lies, Satan.
100%.
I know it, and I know that because God gives us the discernment. And if I were to stand before them this day, I would say the same thing. I would say, you claim you are just like the Pharisees.
Yeah.
You spout that you know God, and yet you do not. You do not bear the fruit of that. And that was the great thing that God told us. He said, because it'd be one thing to say, how do we determine if somebody's really loves God? And God gave us a map. He said, look at the fruit that they bear. If the tree bears bad fruit, its roots are bad. Because if it bears good fruit, its roots are good. Pretty nice formula, man. And you can use that forever and ever and ever when you meet people. It's like, there's another way. People go, actions speak louder than words. So it's kind of same thing too. So, yeah.
That's good stuff, man. That's soul food. That's good. That's good stuff.
Yeah, soul food, buddy. Soul food.
If someone wants to start to fight this battle and make a difference, where would you suggest they start with regards to the trafficking and rescuing children?
Yeah, I think that's a great place to start, because what's going to happen is it's going to take you into a rabbit hole of corruption and evil that will be so undeniable that everything else in the world, you'll be able to see it differently. You'll be able to see with more than your eyes and hear
Yeah.
with more than your ears. It's an experience worth having, because guess what? Those children are the future of our country.
Yeah.
So, we owe it to them. Now, there are going to be a lot of people that aren't going to do anything about it, Byron.
Right.
And there weren't a lot of people that founded our great nation either. 13 colonies, and probably 2/3 of those said, well, let's just get taxed out the yin yang by Prince George and everybody else, and we'll just stay under the British flag. And then there were a few that said, no, we're being directed to do something different. So I would say be willing to be part of the few. And that's a great place to start rescuing children.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Let's see here. I'll be getting into what you're saying, and this is my next question. We're on the closing questions now. Let's see here. What would you favorite quote as we start to exit this stuff out? I just am blessed by listening to you talk. I'm not taking altar calling here. Everything you guys are doing with rescuing children is amazing. It's something that is a righteous battle. I'm so glad that, God's raised up people with your skill set and people to serve. As a young man, I've always asked God for, how can I serve his body? And he's always been faithful to give me an opportunity, which has been interesting being in the church, because they kind of teach you, a lot about be a good boy, essentially, and I always was kind of like, well, I'm a warrior, and I know there's a place, and he showed me, this relationship with David and all these amazing men to really help me understand. So I'm always really, I guess you could use the word touched when I see other warriors and meet other warriors, especially that are farther on their journey. It's like, this is what it can be like, as you stay on this path of serving, from this place. It's really meaningful. So I just want to say thank you for that, man. Thank you for living your life in a way to, be here at this point in time. So last closing few questions. Do you have a favorite quote, mantra, saying?
No, I don't. Because there's so many of them. There's so many, I always think it's not getting from point A to point B that matters, but what you do between those 2 points when it all goes upside down. I spend a lot of time living by that. I think, it's, I think it, there's others like at my dojo, Ajay Sensei at the Yosekan Budo Aikido place that I've studied for years, he would always say, be mindful even when your mind is full.
Wow.
So that's a good one, and my dad, and my mom, it's not how many times you get knocked down, but how many times you get up counts. And I mean, there's just so many. I wish I could be, just like one, I will tell you this, there's something that it's not a mantra, but I do spend a lot of time daily in the Bible, Psalms 91. I don't know if you've ever read it, but
it's in my helmet in Iraq.
Yeah. For those that would listen to your podcast, it's something that I read daily and try to digest, just because guys like you and I and our buddies, they need it. You need protection. You need to know where your strength comes from. And so, people sent it to me when we were starting to get into some really gnarly stuff, and just said, I think you should meditate on this, and study this daily. And it came from some good, solid Christians, brothers and sisters. Interestingly enough, in like 3 different directions, 3 different people, all in the same day going, Psalms 91, Psalms 91.
Okay, yeah, and you see everything.
Okay, I
got it. Thanks. Yes, sir.
God, I get it. Psalms 91. So, and then finally, my grandfather, the strongest steel is tempered in the hottest fire. So don't ever complain about when things go bad or sideways. I mean, get into it. Be the first one to run to, so there's so many. But thank you for asking. I wish I did have just one. But
no worries. It's and they always leave when you get asked too.
Yeah, they do.
What would you say is the hardest thing, the hardest lesson you've learned out in the field doing this work?
I don't know, Byron. Sometimes we think we make a good decision and people lose their lives over it. Something we live with, you know, the rest of our lives. And, you know, it just happens. You can't go down range and get it right every single time.
Right.
And you always wish that you could take the place of those because you're the one making the decisions.
Totally understand that. Proudest moment you've had in the field doing this work?
Every time we rescue a kid, it's great.
Every single one of them. Every time. It's special all over again.
Yeah, we have proud moments, you know. Yeah, they're all good every single time. Knowing that you went when nobody else would go, you know, it's those are some proud moments. I'm always proud more than anything. I'm proud of the people that go with me, and I love those people more than they'll ever know.
Yeah.
I'd die for any of them in a heartbeat. To think that they would follow me into some
stuff,
really tight situations, you know, and that they trust me with their lives to do that. I mean, those are the guys you want burying you, you know.
Yeah.
Those are the people that you could never pay for those type of people. And I'm not deserving of it. You know, not deserving of it, and I don't understand it, but I'm grateful.
Yeah. No, I find it so tragic that not everyone gets to understand what that bond is like. You know, like even have any concept of what a relationship like that could be like without having to do certain things. That's awesome. How would you like to be remembered, Buzz? I swear this is the last
How
one.
would you like to be remembered?
The last one.
Oh
man.
My goodness, that's funny.
You know, that's the last one. Then we're out.
I don't know. I guess I could always carve on my tombstone, he really lived.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man.
You know, I don't know. That's a good question. I never thought about that before. I think that
what's it all for?
Better than being remembered is that people would be inspired by the memory. I think that's more important. You know, for me, I mean, if what they remembered about me inspires them to do great things, then I think I would be okay with that.
Outstanding. That's good. That's outstanding, because that's what I'm pushing for too, man. You know, some people look at my brand and they're like, this guy, I'm like, I'm just out here to help you understand what you can do, what a pretty mediocre dude can actually do if you just apply yourself, you know, like just, you know, what did you learn how to fling those stones, man, you know, give God something to work with and just be faithful, you know, and things happen. That's awesome. You said that. And then, so what are you up to these days and where can people find you, man? Yeah,
you can find us on www.recoveryofchildren.org. You can always go to Bazzel-Baz.com, see what we're doing, you know, in the film industry side of the house. Or you can go to Bazzel, you can go to BazBooks.com to see what I'm writing. And other than that, they can contact you if they get in a jam, and you can call me and we'll go get them out, you know?
Zip line them out of there. Man, it's been this. Sorry to keep you so long. This is a great episode. It's been amazing listening to you, learning from you, absorbing everything you've been putting out, sir. I'm glad we're connected. It's the grace of God. And thank you so much for your time and your contributions, you know, to the world and to those people who aren't able to defend themselves. It's righteous stuff. And I'm humbled just to be able to have these conversations with you, sir.
Me too, Byron. Well, you got my number. We'll be in touch. We got some things to do together down the road here. So anyway,
yes, sir.
God bless you. And you can call anytime, no matter where I am. Okay.
Outstanding. And likewise. Thank you so much.
All right, brother. God bless you, man.
God bless. Boom. Boom. Yo, what up? I hope you guys really enjoyed that episode. Hey, listen, in order to get more out of the brand, I want to encourage you to go join us on our social media platforms and join us at protectornation.com. We post different types of content on our different platforms at different times. You'll get blog posts, you'll get videos, you'll get real world combat engagements and things like that. So stay plugged in order to get the most out of the brand. In order to support us, also go to protectornation.com and
buy something, or join forces with me on Patreon. You'll scroll down the homepage and you'll see the link. Anything you can give counts. Think about whatever you would lose in your cushions or like spend on McDonald's this month, $5 a month, whatever it is. That helps us make the world a better place by making good people dangerous. Anyways, this is Byron Rodgers, protector by nature and by trade, and I'll see you on the next piece of content, whether it's a video or podcast. Out.